Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome here to Road America as it plays host to the fifth race of the season for the Dark Horse Racing Series F.A.R.T NDCar Series. Getting ready here today for 45 laps of racing here in the heart of Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. First time these drivers are going to have to deal with the rights and lefts of a road course. Got 16 drivers by my last count that are going to be taking the green flag in this one here this evening. And one thing that we have not gotten to talk about in the previous four races, because they've all been speedways, is there's a little spanner in the works for these drivers here tonight. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. I'm Seth Cole. These drivers just now wrapping up qualifying. Normally at the speedways, they get 5 minutes for qualifying, with it taking a little bit extra time to get around this racetrack. It takes them roughly around a minute and 40 seconds. They get 10 minutes to be able to lay down the lap times that will place them in the starting lineup, and they are just concluding now. Gives us a little bit of time to talk about that little caveat that the drivers are going to have to deal with for the first time this season, and that is, with these open wheel race cars, they are going to have 3 different tire compounds that they will be able to work with here tonight. They have softs, mediums, and hards. The softs give you more speed, but the tires wear down a lot faster. Hards, obviously, a little bit slower, but they end up not wearing nearly as bad. And mediums, obviously, pretty self-explanatory, right in the middle. The drivers here tonight will have to race on at least 2 of those tire compounds, a minimum of 2 of those tire compounds during the course of this 45-lap event. We're going to try and keep you up to date with what type of tire these drivers are starting on, what they might swap over to with a pit stop. There's no way they can make it the 45-lap distance on 1 tank of fuel, despite the fact they are starting at 100% fuel capacity here today. It'll be interesting to see who elects to maybe start on mediums, maybe on hards, and then swap over to a faster compound, medium, or softs for the end of the race. Who starts on softs right out of the gate and then maybe swaps over to a medium for the second half? We'll be giving you all that information as it takes place. But qualifying is completed, and Eric Schaus is going to line up on the pole position. That is going to mark his second pole on the year, tying him for most poles on the season with J.W. Miller, who coming into tonight was the points leader over Schaus and is not in tonight's starting lineup that we are going to take a look at right now. Taylor Jordan, he was fast in practice. He's going to make up the outside of the front row, and very fast in the last couple of starts we've seen him make. Christopher going to roll off in third. Will Roberts, our winner back at, I believe it was Phoenix. No, it was New Hampshire, I'm sorry. Second race of the season. He's going to roll off fourth. Najee Camargo and Jeff Heisung, they've been very consistent this year, both up inside of the top 10. Actually, I think they're both, one's inside of the top 5. Jeff Heisung third, and Camargo is 9th in points. And then completing the top 10, you've got debuting Arturo Mayorga in the 12 and Charles Teed in the 5 car. Top 10 going to be completed with Thomas McConnell. I believe this is his best start of the season in 9th. And Nicholas Winook going to complete the top 10. Sheridan Wade, Gary Corley back there in 11th and 12th. Brandon Gates, the last driver to take time, in the 13th position. He'll be joined by Craig Forsyth, who's going to start pretty deep in the field. One of our ones to watch when it comes to road course racing. And then making up the 16-car field tonight will be Jim Herrick and Joseph Morales. Waiting on a couple of drivers to grid up before we get ready to go racing here tonight. And looks like a few drivers may be electing to start this race from pit road. Sheridan Wade, Craig Forsyth, and Joseph Morales have, well, I was going to say they've all missed the start. But now they're showing up on the telemetry. Let's see if they're rolling off of pit lane. Big gap back there. Yeah, I think a couple of these drivers are starting from pit road. No, there's Morales. Here's Sheridan Wade. Okay, so the only driver that is not starting on the grid is Craig Forsyth in the 27. keep updated on that, see if he's going to be able to get out on the racetrack or not. Craig, of course, had a great podium finish last time out at Pocono. Comes into this race 4th in the point standings, 42 points back. Give it a look at the point standings coming into this race. J.W. Miller, the points leader, 35 points over Eric Schaus, but that'll certainly get eaten into tonight with Schaus starting on the pole and Miller not in the field. Jeff Heisong, 39 points back in 3rd. Craig Forsyth, we just mentioned, 4th in points, jumped up 3 spots in the standings after Pocono, 42 points out. And Will Roberts right now 5th in points. He is 45 points back. Some other drivers have made some big leaps and bounds in the point standings after Pocono last week. Charles Teed's up to 6th. He's 54 points out, gained 4 spots last week. Taylor Jordan, we mentioned the run he's been on. He gained 7 spots, up to 8th in points, 59 points back. And the driver who gained the most spots last time out at Pocono was Chris Stouffer. 10 points, or 10 positions, I should say, he gained up to 12th in the standings, 82 points out. So those drivers will look to keep the good momentum going. Heading here through turn number 6 and 7, which I honestly think is going to be the biggest trouble spot today. A lot of people single out certain areas here of Road America as the areas to watch. The heavy braking downhill turn 5, the left-hander up to turn 6, and of course the treacherous Canada corner at the end of Kettle Bottoms. But a lot of drivers, I think, take note of them being the tougher areas of the racetrack, and they plan accordingly. In my opinion, I think the toughest places that these drivers are going to deal with here today is going to be that area we just saw them come up through, 6 and 7, and also 8 and 9, the left-hand uphill transitions. A lot of times we've seen in the past here in the Dark Horse Racing Series, drivers, they get back to the throttle a little too soon, swing their cars out a little too wide, and if you get your left sides or right sides off the rumble strip into the grass just at least a little bit. Saw this a bunch in practice earlier on tonight. You will lose that grip, you will spin around, and there's not a whole lot of room for error. I mean, you can see right here as they head down through Kettle Bottoms heading for Canada Corner. Concrete barriers on the left and right, some steel Armco barriers there on the left side. You make a mistake, you are more than likely going to have a lot of damage that you're going to have to deal with. Now, granted, these drivers do have the fast repair available as they've had all season long, but the other thing about a road course is if you run into trouble, there's not necessarily a guarantee that it's going to bring out a full course yellow. It may bring out a local yellow, but it may not bring out a full course yellow, so you make the mistake, you lose the track position, it's going to be very difficult to gain it all back without the aid of a caution flying. Reckon the early portion of the track and can't fire it back up and drive back to pit road, oh boy, you have to call it no, and that is a lot of track position that you're going to lose as well. A pace car is going to make the right-hand turn here at Road America up the hill to pit road, and he's going to turn it over to Eric Schaus to lead us to the green for 45 laps of racing, the first road course stop of the season for the F.A.R.T NDCar Series. And we are underway here in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. Let's see how organized these drivers get here in the early going. Try and settle into a groove. We've already got a driver off course. That is Charles Teed. That was off of turn number 1. Trying to get the thing refired as he's sitting in the middle of the track. He now will get the thing turned around. We've also got Nicholas Winook in trouble. He is on pit road in the 33. And Greg Forsyth in the 27 has come back on the track. And now Eric Schaus goes around, as does Chris Stouffer in the 15. Both loop it around. And was that the area I was just talking about? I believe that was up in 6 and 7. Exactly what I was saying, except that was a little bit different from what I was initially thinking. That was heading into the entry of the corner and just no rear grip. Wow. So just like that. Oh, we got another car around. Brandon Gates has looped it. I believe that's up in 8 and 9. He'll continue on, and that puts Najee Camargo out in front. So just like that, Eric Schaus has dropped back to 8th. Chris Stouffer has dropped back to 7th. Charles Teed is back to 15th, and Brandon Gates is back to 14th. Lap 1, and already we had about 4 drivers with problems. Well, 5 drivers, add in Nicholas Winook. We'll try and see if things can settle out here, if we can go back and try and get some replays of all that went down. We don't want to miss the action live in case something breaks out, but I think things are somewhat spread out. Oh no, that was Will Roberts getting off course as he and Arturo Mayorga were side by side. Got his right sides up into the grass, did Will Roberts, our New Hampshire winner, but he hung on, drops back to 4th. And we got some drivers on pit road already. Jim Herrick in the 40, Jeff Heisong in the 18. Are these maybe drivers already making the tire changes? We had most drivers start this race on mediums. Taylor Jordan, Craig Forsyth, Jeff Heisong, Jim Herrick, and Nicholas Winook all started on hards. Everybody else started on mediums. We'll follow up and see if these are pit stops to change over. Yep, Jeff Heisong just changed over to medium tire compound. Jim Herrick stayed with hard tire compound, and he's returned back to the track. Thomas McConnell is now on pit road. And he, I believe, did he change his tire compound? He's now coming out on hards. And Charles Teed is just now leaving pit road in the 5, coming back out on the racetrack. I believe he started the race on mediums, and he returns to the track on mediums. So lap 2 in the books with Najee Camargo out in front. And in those first 2 laps, we had a total of 5 drivers on pit road. As a matter of fact, Nicholas Winook is out of the race. Winook's going to get credited for 16th. And after all that, remember Craig Forsyth started from pit road? Well, he's already up to 7th. So that was obviously not a bad call, as I think McConnell's gone around again. That is, I think, again up off of turn number 6. That's the race leader going around him there. He's trying to get out of the way, and he's going to slide in, clip the tire barrier with the right rear. Look out. Oh, there's no way he can get that thing turned around with oncoming traffic. He's going to have to wait quite a while. Another car has had a problem. Sheridan Wade, he's gone around. That looked like that might have been off of, is that turn 1? Yep. No, turn 2, sorry. Not sure exactly where to look. There's so much going on. Here's a battle for the lead. Let's stay up here. Najee Camargo has been run down by Taylor Jordan. Go on board with Taylor Jordan. Look ahead at battle for the race lead. Up the hill here. Let's take a lap around the racetrack here, courtesy of Taylor Jordan, the 802, up to 7th gear. He may make a move down here into turn 1. He's going to. To the lead goes Taylor Jordan as he heads through into turn 1. Down the hill to a slightly heavy braking zone, turn number 2. Actually, this is turn 3, correction. There's a turn 2 in the middle of 1 and 3. May not seem like a corner, but it is. This is turn 4 down the Moraine Sweep. And here is the heaviest braking zone of the entire course. Downhill, left-hander, looking to get all the way down to 3rd gear. Yanks on that wheel. Up the hill here to turn 6, where we saw pole sitter Eric Schaus have a problem there. You see the counter steer there, even by Taylor Jordan. Through turn 7. Down Hurry Downs, heading for the left-hand turn 8. Let's see if there's counter steer here up this corner. A little bit of play with the wheel. Through turn 9 and into turn 10. This is the carousel of the racetrack. Look at the speed they're carrying here and just how the car kind of is sliding through. Then we head into the bend. This is the kink, turn 11. Down into Kettle Bottoms. Not a straightaway, but a lot of speed gets carried down here. Heading for Canada Corner, turn 12. Look at that runoff there. Not much runoff, and then a tire barrier. Through Thunder Valley, left hand into 13. Bill Mitchell Bend. And then the final right hand, turn 14. Before heading back up the Road America straight to the start-finish line. And that was a fast lap turn, but it did not look like a smooth lap when you saw all the play that was going on with the wheel. Thanks to Taylor Jordan for giving us a turn around Road America. this is the closest battle on track, as we've had another driver had an issue on that lap that we were on board with Taylor Jordan. Will Roberts on pit lane in the 31. Looks like maybe some damage there on that right front wing. He's already fallen a lap down, has Roberts. Thomas Shannon McConnell is also a lap down. 13 drivers currently on the lead lap. Charles Teed, the last of those, and he is only right now running about 16 seconds ahead of the race leader, Taylor Jordan. Taylor Jordan picking up that victory last week at Pocono. He's made a limited number of starts this year, this being the 5th race of the season, only his 3rd start on the year, but second place finish at Phoenix and that victory at Pocono has him up there in the point standings, 8th in points. And if he can get another good run today, maybe a victory, it's close enough where he could possibly be up inside the top 5 in points. He is only 14 points behind Will Roberts, 5th in the standings coming into tonight's event. So mathematically, he would have a shot at that. His 3rd place running Arturo Mayorga was very interested to see what he was going to be able to do here tonight, making his debut on the season. Rolled off the grid from the 7th position, up 4 spots to 3rd, and looking to get a podium in his first start. And the good comeback for both Eric Schaus and Chris Stouffer. We saw the two of them go around on the first lap up on the uphill left-hand turn 6, dropping them back outside of the top 5. Well, they are now back inside of the top 5. Eric Schaus in 4th, and Chris Stouffer, there you see him just entering into the vicinity there in the 15. He is in the 5th position. And there is Craig Forsyth right now in 6th place. Gary Corley just ran into an issue, it looks like, and he's retired out of the race. And I think Sheridan Wade just had an off-track excursion. Yep, that was off turn 14, the final corner, and he's headed up for pit road. Taylor Jordan out in front. Let's see if we can go back and look at a couple of replays of stuff that's gone down, as I believe Jeff Hysong may have just had a problem. We're going to try and see if we can document most of everything that happened, if we possibly can. Let's go all the way back to the very first lap with Charles Teed. And no contact, at least at the initial start, although he did get into somebody. I think that was Nicholas Winook that he just got into. That's how Winook got his damage, but Teed got his right sides off the racing surface, loops it around. Gonna try and see if we can find what happened with Eric Schaus. I believe this was it here. You see Chris Stouffer as well, both looping it around. This was on the first lap as well. Both drivers have been able to mount comebacks since then. Thomas McConnell slow through that corner and thought he might have gone around that turn, but he did not. Here's what happened with Brandon Gates. Ooh. Got loose, tried to save it, got the left sides over in the grass, and just could not keep the thing pointed straight. Lost a ton of track position as a result. Trying to find some more incidents that may have taken place. Looks like they're saying Sheridan Wade here. This was back on lap 3. Yep. He goes around. Oh, actually makes some contact. That was off of turn 2, I believe. Or turn 3, I'm sorry. Backs it into the tire barrier. Hopefully we're not missing anything as we're going back and looking at all of these, but we're trying to show everything that took place during the course of this couple of laps. Oh man, Will Roberts. Take a look at this one here. As he was heading up through the final sections of the track, heading up for the final corner, and oh man, big hit into the concrete barrier. That's why we saw him on pit road. And then we'll finally look at Gary Corley. I think this is what takes him out of the race. Oh, he gets run into. That's Sheridan Wade, I think, that got him from behind. Pounds the wall, and his day is done. Getting a report, Jeff Heisong had an issue. Oh gosh, yeah, and so did, who is that? Is that the 17, I think, of McConnell? He also ended up wrecking. That was up in the final corner as well, heading up, I believe that was into turn 13. I think this actually just happened, and now we're actually getting a report that Craig Forsyth also may have had a problem. Let's watch the 27 as he's heading down through Kettle Bottoms into Canada Corner, and he overdrives it. Doesn't hit anything. Fortunately, that sand trap run off enough for him, but just to get back to the throttle and nearly loses it. And last but not least here on lap 8, looks like Brandon Gates had another problem. Oh, he may actually be pulling it to the driver's right to get out of the way. Yeah, he was getting out of the way for the race leader. So that's all of what's gone down here in these first 8 laps. As a result, we've got, it looks like, 4 drivers out of the race. Jeff Heisong going to get 13th, Gary Corley 14th, Thomas McConnell 15th. Nicholas Winook is going to get credited for 16th. We've got 12 drivers currently running on the track, and 9 of them on the lead lap, with Taylor Jordan out in front by nearly 3.5 seconds over Najee Camargo.
Yeah, but Seth, it's a joyous moment to make my rebirth into the commentary booth with you. It's been a very long time, my friend.
If you don't recognize the voice, that's Scott Rankin back up here in the F.A.R.T booth. How you doing, man?
Yeah, not too bad. I was browsing through YouTube, was doing some research for an article I was just about to be in the process of writing, and, well, the broadcast, it popped up, and I went, oh, that's Seth Cole. And then I went to the Discord server, and I went, that's Seth Cole commentating alone. I've got to solve that. That's a problem I can fix.
Absolutely. Great to have you back. Looks like Christopher just had an issue, but we've seen these drivers before when they drove the DW12 cars, and they had some issues. It looks like these IR01 cars are giving these guys quite a bit of headaches.
Yeah, so the differences between both of the previous gens of cars, the IR18 and the DW12, not quite as peaky on the throttle and the torque curve that comes out of them. And they've got a little bit more downforce. These cars sort of, remembering this is a fictional car, this is something that doesn't exist. It's made to sort of be reminiscent of an older sort of F1 car, made to be a hybrid with a car. Oh, that's a bad bit of contact. Sorry, I'm watching the stream at the moment. That's the only way I'm getting my images at this point in time. That was just a really, really delayed sort of pickup. So there's 2 ways that you can really overcome that. Short shifting to prevent the wheel spin is one of the primary ways that you're going to do that. The problem with short shifting is it means you're not driving the car on the edge. You're not getting the maximum in terms of straight line acceleration out of it. But if it keeps the car on the road, as a lot of these drivers are struggling to do, that's probably the preferable outcome.
Taylor Jordan so far has been able to keep his car on the racetrack, and as mentioned, trying to become a back-to-back winner here in the F.A.R.T NDCar series. So far has not had a finish worse than second in his previous 2 starts. Another thing I've been noticing here as well, with a lot of drivers having these issues and everything, it's made it a little bit difficult to kind of figure out who has swapped over tire compounds, because I don't think a lot of these pit stops have necessarily been scheduled pit stops for them to come down and willingly make those changes on the tire compounds. So as of right now, it looks like we've only got 3 drivers out there on hards. Our race leader, Taylor Jordan, is one of them. Craig Forsyth, who started the race from pit road, and Jim Herrick, they're still on hards, and then everybody else, the of the remaining 11 drivers, they're all out there on medium tires. And I was kind of playing this out in my head, trying to figure out, we don't necessarily know what the fuel window is for these guys, but it kind of seemed like maybe either hards to softs or mediums to mediums. It kind of seemed like that would have to, for the most part, be the strategy that these drivers would utilize.
Well, the big question for me is, do they actually have to use 2 different compounds? If not, then I would
Minimum of
probably
2.
Minimum of 2. So,
Yeah.
well, I mean, you can't do a medium to medium.
Oh,
You're
that's
gonna have
true.
to put
Yeah.
something else
Yep.
in there. I would probably stay away from the soft. The problem with the soft is that those last few laps are going to be absolutely treacherous. You can potentially swap that off again, with just being really, really careful or short shifting. What that does suggest to me is that your first stint will be massively long. From the history of these sorts of races, they tend to have a pit stop window that's sort of split down the middle, or alternatively, a pit cycle whereby it's fuel save heavy, as in you can cut one stop out if you can save in the realm of 3 to 5 laps worth of fuel across the run. With that in mind, I would probably be saying a hard medium would probably be the recommended race compound. And I think the fact that you had a lot of your top 5 on that medium compound, that also suggests it as well. The guys that are on the hard early, it's about going, okay, we're going to stay out here, we're going to stay clean, and we're going to keep the car in one piece. That's the strategy. We're not looking for fastest lap times, we're not looking for quick lap times, we're not looking to race anyone, we're just looking to keep this thing on the road. And that's the problem with the hard, isn't it? It's no grip, hard to warm up. Once it does come online, very, very good race tire. Tends to be. Road America's not a great track for bringing a hard in and making it work. When you've only got 2 compounds instead of 3, it's actually quite good. Generally the preferred race tire, but when you've got 3 compounds instead of 2, I would say your medium's probably your preferred race tire.
Saw moments ago Charles Teed have an off-road excursion. Didn't hit anything, returns back to the track, albeit back in 9th place. And this is the brewing battle for 3rd between Arturo Megora and Eric Schaus. One thing that I kind of noticed and maybe was a little bit surprised about, Craig Forsyth elected not to put down a time, elected to start at the rear of the field, and then started from pit road. We saw how congested it was going into turn 1, and granted, the first incident we had there in that first corner was not anybody making contact and spinning somebody out, but a car getting off track and spinning in front of others, 2 or 3 other drivers getting damaged. Little surprised that more drivers didn't adopt the start from pit road strategy.
It's a tricky one starting from pit lane because you're putting yourself so far behind the 8 ball. One of the biggest benefits of starting from pit lane is actually the fuel consumption. So, you know, a full lap on the pacing, particularly with these cars with such a massive V10, V12 engine, they will gurgle down a lot of fuel. So, the reason these cars are hard to drive is we already talked about the acceleration power of the cars, exactly what they're raw capable of in terms of performance. But when they go quickly. You won't really get a sense of that until you actually get an onboard shot, and you won't really get a sense of that if you're watching at home if you've never actually driven the car either. The IndyCar sort of, the IR18, sorry, my apologies, the IR18 is somewhat similar, but there's a lot more reaction time, and you can drive that car on the edge. These are the utmost in you must not make a mistake kind of cars. This is about precision, it's about placement, it's about smoothness, and these are just, you have to manhandle the car. They are a physical car to drive, and they really, really reward a driver who's put in the practice, put in the time, put in the effort, because you cannot get the experience driving this that you can in any other car. There's a lot of other cars where there's something similar. You know, you say Porsche 992 GT3 Carrera Cup car. You can run a GT3 car, and it's going to give you a similar sort of experience, albeit without brake biases and those things. Whoa, here comes the overtake.
Indeed, that is Eric Schaus making the move, heading into Canada corner of all places, to make the pass for 3rd position on Arturo Mayorga. And of course, remember, for Eric Schaus, started on the pole position, spun out up on, oh, that's a car in front of him there. That, I believe,
that was P2.
Yep, that was Najee Camargo in the 59, and he's just like that, going to go from 2nd back to 4th place. Let's see if we can find out exactly what happened to him there in that final corner. Looks like he may have just overdriven turn 14. Yep. A little too hot. Got off
But
that
have a look
strip runoff area.
have a look at how he responded to that incident, though, Seth. Like, there's a lot of drivers. This is one of the things when you got to remember, right? Most of our field here are not road course veterans. These are all oval guys through and through. So when you're throwing a road course in the mix of this, obviously, great for the series. Actually, really provides a much better crossover towards the real world thing. But not a lot of these guys' wheelhouses, when they tend to make mistakes like that, what'll happen is, I've got to pick up the throttle, I've got to get back on track as quickly as possible. They actually double down on the incident. Generally, if you stab the throttle when you're in a position like Nia Camargo was in that specific instance, he'd spin as well. Then you're losing another 10 seconds, potentially taking yourself out of the race if you collect a wall on the way out. So he's actually done a really, really good job responding to that and making sure that it's just a single incident.
Now, it's funny you bring up the fact a lot of these drivers, not necessarily road course drivers, used to the ovals. Well, today's kind of the agony and the ecstasy for those that don't consider themselves as much of road course drivers, because it's the first road course stop in the season. It's also the only road course stop in the season. Only speedways and short tracks coming up after this. So just kind of get out of here with whatever position you can. Kind of maybe the mentality of a lot of the drivers here today is Taylor Jordan has hit pit road from the race lead. So this says to me he's splitting this race in thirds.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. If he is doing the other thing is he could be going, okay, well, it's a 30-lap run to home. I can fuel up and go for 30 laps. If there's two ways to think about this. Yes, he could be theoretically splitting the race in thirds, but the fact that nobody else pit there says to me it's actually not that whatsoever. I think this is him going the hard tire. He's gone to hard. Okay, never mind. I was going to say, yep. Yeah. I would say if the hard's not the preferred race compound, he could come in now, pit, put the medium on, run to the end. You know, that if the medium is actually a better tire over a 30-lap run than the hard tire, that's exactly what you'd want to be doing. We've hit our minimum race distance. It's come in. Normally in this sort of an instance, with the position that he was actually in, I'd run it a few laps longer just to go, okay, well, my medium's not going to fall off anywhere near as bad. We're going to preserve that tire. Sometimes you'll see this from the likes of Formula 1 and whatnot. The drivers, they'll get their minimum required laps out on a tire to get themselves to the end of the race, and they'll come down in the end. So that's what I was expecting from him. But yeah, in that case, given that he slapped the hardback on, it's thirds.
What we've seen so far here in the first third of this race, if you're having a quiet day, you're more than likely having a good day. And that would be the case right now for Jim Herrick. He's about to get reeled in by Will Roberts, but 6th position right now for the 40. He's kept his nose clean, kept that thing in one piece. And interestingly enough, though, looks like on the pit stop he made 13 laps ago, he has already taken on his faster pair. So maybe he had some contact we didn't previously catch, as Eric Schaus, Arturo Mayorga, Najee Camargo, top 3 after the 8:02 hit pit road. They're now on pit lane here at the completion of 15.
Yeah, so wonder is the other side of that coin could be as well that was actually an early pit stop for our race leader. Or whether or not these guys are intending upon switching to a medium on this stint. You know, we're going to see a lot in terms of what this race looks like by what they do with the tire compounds here. Obviously, quite well dominated at the moment, completely and utterly in control. Arturo, I think we've got a medium for Schaus. Can tell you that for sure. Jordan's only barely going to come back out. Actual fact, Jordan doesn't get the lead out of that stop.
Does not. You're right. Schaus is going to beat him off of pit lane and have 6 car lengths over him. However, to your point, Schaus did stick with mediums, and Taylor Jordan kept hards on for at least this second stint. So it'll be interesting to see the comparison of medium to hards here for the top 2. Najee Camargo, he's going to come off pit road 3rd. He's on mediums, and Arturo Mayorga, he's on hards in 4th place.
Yeah, so I really like the strategy. I don't want to leave it to the back end of the race to clear my alternate tire, right? So generally for these sorts of races, if you're trying to set yourself up, normally it's a lot easier, right? We've only got 2 tire compounds in the IR18. In these things, 3 different tire compounds. Whoa, that was a car off. That was Brendan Gates.
Yes, it was. Brandon Gates has been having some problems here today, especially up there in 6 and 7. Has kind of been his Achilles heel. About the 2nd or 3rd time we've seen him around. The previous time he was over on the right side of the course. Now he's on the left side, running the last car on the racetrack in 11th place, and now going to get the thing back on the racing surface and continue on, albeit 2 laps down.
It's funny you say Achilles heel, because if this was Watkins Glen, that would be his Achilles boot. You've missed me, Seth. You've missed me.
I have missed you. There's no boot here, right? There's just a carousel. Well, don't
Correct.
think.
Apologies.
Yeah,
I've got a
there's a
kitten at the
kink.
moment
There's a
trying to-
kink. There's a kink. I guess we can kind of consider that like the heel of a boot. I don't know.
That's
It's
his
the
Achilles
toe.
Canada.
It's Achilles Canada. It's Achilles kink.
Oh.
I don't know if that one will catch on or not.
Well, we'll have to see. We'll have to see. If the kink is flying towards the sun, maybe.
Maybe. This battle for the
No, that
lead.
was Aristotle. Yeah.
Now, explain this to me. How are the hard tire compound catching the medium tire compound? Because I would have thought that they would actually be losing ground since the mediums produce a little bit more speed. It is maybe there's more grip with the hard tires, and that's allowing him to reel in Schaus?
So generally what happens in terms of real-world tire compounds, and we see this quite a lot in terms of Formula 1, MotoGP is actually a really, really good case study for this, because if you've ever played any of the MotoGP Simcade titles, they're actually really fun. But the first and primary thing is the recommended tires are based upon the track temperature. Given that we've got a medium-based track temperature, you would actually think that the hards would actually not be a favored tire in this. If the track was a little bit warmer, hards would get stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. They tend to build up heat slower. In this case, I would actually say with him catching Schaus, number one, he's got draft. Number two, is his tires went on that extra lap ago, so they've got a little bit more tire temperature available to him. Means he can push a little bit harder. You'd probably see Schaus respond from this lap on, but then your tire fall off. So for you oval guys, this is where your knowledge really starts to come back in. Everyone knows about tire saving. Everyone knows about tire fall. The tire fall off for a medium tire, even though its pace is going to be better, is higher. What that means is at a certain point, the tires cross over in terms of where their speed is. Now, with Schaus on a fresher set of tires, anything can happen.
Got some traffic up ahead that both the race leaders are going to have to deal with, as we see this with the onboard of Taylor Jordan. Looks like they're going to catch him in a good spot here, heading down towards turn number 5. Going to yield to the right side. Saw a little bit of extra time there in the draft, trying to get a run there was our second place driver, and couldn't outbrake Eric Schaus going into turn number 5 up the hill to turn number 6. Interesting note, it's easier to name off the drivers that still have the faster pair available than it is those that have used it, because as of right now, your top 4 still have the faster pair available, and Joseph Morales back in 9th. Everybody else is still running. Their mulligan is gone.
Yeah, so something else to note, Seth, is I'm actually keeping half an eye on Schaus and Jordan's sector times. Where Schaus is stronger is down through the slower corners. So once you come off of 3 and you run down the hill into towards turn 5, down that hill, 6, faster, 8, faster, 9, faster. Then it's all the straight sections, which is where Taylor Jordan's really back in. So it's actually the draft that's aiding Taylor Jordan. The tricky spot for Taylor Jordan here is that, well, there's also a lot of air disturbance. So that also could be adding to Eric Schaus's benefit in all the slow corners. Needs to get that tire gripped up, needs to get the thing pointed in, can't do it, not enough air.
Will Roberts on pit road. This is a regularly scheduled stop for the 31. A lot of drivers kind of off sequence from the race leaders due to having to make some unscheduled pit stops in the first 5 laps of this race. Brandon Gates that we saw have that issue moments ago. He has since taken his car back to the garage. He'll get credited for 11th. And oh, there's somebody right there. That's Jim Herrick, I think, that just went off course there in turn 3.
Yep,
returns back just behind the top 2.
Yeah, so tough day for Jim Herrick. That's on fresh hards by the look of no, he's on softs. He's actually come out on softs, yeah. So he's gone in the complete opposite direction. So whether or not one of the biggest things I actually learned, and it actually came from driving around these guys as well, is changing tire compounds. Had a race 1 in this series, was out in front, in control of the race, come in, put a set of hards on, and no tire temperature, went down into turn number 1, straight off and straight into the barrier, race done, nothing I can do about it. So understanding your limits, he's gone the opposite direction, so you would think more grip available. The problem is we're just talking about tire temperatures and the way that the tire phases through the run. This is actually going to be a run. This would be close actually down at Canada.
Closes up to about 2 car lengths, 1.5. Not close enough to be able to make an overtake though. Try and set him up maybe up the hill going up the straightaway to the start-finish line.
Down turn 1, but you can see how much he falls back through the high downforce corners through the kink and whatnot. There is a slight lift down through there, less of a lift when you've got clear air on the nose. Schaus has got control of this one, I think he's okay. So, tire temperatures. The thing about a soft tire is it's softer. What actually happens there is that the rubber sort of doesn't just scrub against the road generating tire heat, it also scrubs and moves around against itself. The softer a tire, we all know, a lump of silly potty, a lump of clay, something like that, softer, malleable, moves all around it. You try squishing a lump of stone, you ain't going to get very far with that. What actually happens is that clay, as you're kneading it, actually warms up. It's exactly the same process with a tire. The tire moves around on itself, moves around on the track, two different sources of friction that heat the surface of the tire. Eventually, you get to a point where the tire overheats, the grip coefficient on the surface of that tire then degrades, you've got less grip, you've got a tire that's overheated. Well, you try getting heat out of an overheated tire, you're just going to wheel spin more and more, your problem gets worse, you're going to end up in the barrier if you're not very careful. Managing tire temperatures on that soft compound, very critical to race.
As of right now, Jim Herrick, when we saw that he had taken on the softs, that was the first driver the entire race so far that we've seen that has elected to go with the soft tire compound. Another driver actually also elected to swap over to that, and that was Joseph Morales. So in case of Eric Schaus, first stint, medium tire. Second stint, medium tire. You go with the hard tire, I guess, on the final stint rather than the soft tire, because it was actually announced in the drivers' meeting, if you did not do a minimum of 2 different tire compounds in this race, there was a penalty handed out. So he's going to have to change to one or the other. He can't stick with medium on the third and final stint.
So I actually really prefer to be in Taylor's shoes here in this final stint. I'm actually keeping another eye on sector times as well. Schaus is setting purple sector times, best sector times of the session in Sector 1 and the sector around Canada Corner, which means he's doing a phenomenal job right in those sectors. The problem Eric Schaus has got here is I don't think we've already seen, if he's watching, if he's listening along, if he's aware, would have done practice, would have done preparation, I'd say the soft is too bad. The problem going from a medium to a hard is less grip. You've spent most of the race now on a grippier tire. You understand that? Oh, here we go.
Big run here down to the Moraine sweep. We saw him back off a little bit early there. Was hoping that Schaus would make a mistake and not going to. Interesting, you brought up the fact that the lap times that these guys are setting in the sections. We are 21 laps into this race. These drivers are about 5-6 laps into their run. Both the top two, Schaus, Jordan, just ran their fastest lap of the race last time by.
Yeah, so track temperature is actually coming down. I know it's coming down in Celsius, which means that number is greater in Fahrenheit. I've watched it come down 2 Celsius. I think it's about 6-7 Fahrenheit as well. So the numbers, the needle's starting to move around, more grip on the track surface. Also quite good. Cool track, less heat going into the tire, less picked up off the surface because you're scrubbing over it. You've got a little bit more grip available. Tire doesn't have to work as hard. Where were we before? Yes, tire compounds, right. So Taylor Jordan, the benefit that he's got here is he's going from a less grippy tire to a grippier tire. The problem he's got now, he will have to manage tires in that final stint, whereas Eric Schaus going in the other direction. He's going from a grippier tire back a step, which means he's got less grip available. Slightly, the grip step isn't a huge deal between these two compounds, but it is enough. The benefit is this final stint you won't have to manage. Man, this battle's epic.
Yeah, that was a bit of a block right there going down Kettle Bottoms. This is 4th place. Arturo Mayorga defending against Craig Forsyth. Up until this battle, really the battle for the lead was the closest thing we had, but these guys, they are duking it out for that 4th position. Here we go, up the straight. Looks like there's going to be a lane for Craig Forsyth, but he'll have to be on the outside going around into the right-hand turn 1.
Yeah, it depends. Arturo may just take the L here and just let it happen. Nope, he's going to fight it.
Hang on, both these drivers on the same tire compound. No, correction. Forsyth's on mediums, and Arturo Mayorga is actually on hards. So advantage potentially to Craig Forsyth in terms of speed potentially there.
So what I'm actually going to say with this one is that this is actually Arturo struggling to come to grips with what's available to him on those hards. So remember this when Eric Schaus down the outside, Seth!
Oh,
he gets it done!
That was really tight right there, but he swings around the outside and is able to get the 4th spot. It's Craig Forsyth, but that could have been dicey. One little slip up by the 12, and we could have seen Craig Forsyth off into the sand trap there.
So Craig tends to want to clear the tire that he doesn't like as early as possible.
Oh, both cars off track, and all the way off track was Arturo Mayorga. Right sides went off for Forsyth, but he was able to keep it going.
Yeah, so Arturo's got 2 problems there. Dirty, yeah, very, very close to the car in front of him, means he's the most affected that he's ever going to be by that air. The problem that he had through that section of the race, though, was that he's gone from mediums to hard, so he hasn't made an adjustment. This is the difficulty that these lead drivers are now going to be in on this final stint. And look, you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself right here. I wonder if Taylor knows he's going to that medium, whether he's settled, whether he's comfortable with this. He's not pushing this too hard, Seth.
A couple of issues that have happened in the last couple of laps. Joseph Morales, this is off the final corner. hard into the tire barriers there with the left front wing. He had to take the teleportation back to pit road, and then Sheridan Wade, this is also coming off through the final couple of corners. And almost a case of deja vu. He almost ran in the same tire tracks as Joseph Morales there. Hard impact into those tires with that front wing, and those tires are unforgiving. They just rip the car apart.
Yeah, it all comes down to that suspension arm breaking on either the front left or the front right, really. It's just... They're quite sturdy in through the body of the car, but you cannot afford a lengthy impact into those front and front right left corners. What I would actually say from Taylor here is I think he's actually just he's happy to let Eric Schaus lead this one. He's going to burn less fuel, first and foremost. Whoa, Eric! Those mediums might be starting to fade. Yeah.
A little close there. Gotta keep all four tires on the racing surface there. We've seen what's happened already to drivers that get the lefts or rights off into the grass just the least little bit. He almost did it there. Kettle Bottom's heading for Canada Corner. Good news for Morales was he still had the fast repair, so he's back on the racetrack, but Sheridan Wade sitting on pit road having to do manual repairs to the front end, that front wing, the front nose of his car, and he is 5 laps down. We've only got, as of right now, a total, I think we had another Morales incident. Yep, he's gone around. Is that heading into Canada Corner there?
He's pulled it up. He's done well. He's done well. See those tire tracks? Not all the way to the tire barrier. He's okay with that one. You'll take that.
See if we can find out what happened to him. Yeah, that was indeed heading into Canada Corner. Oh, it looks like he may have just over-smoked it there, like the brakes didn't take. That thing just went straight. Never turned.
That's actually, with road courses, Seth, like when you're in too deep, I've actually done a fair bit of driver coaching lately, particularly oval drivers. A lot of oval drivers are coming to me saying, hey, I want to learn road courses, and I've got a lot of road course drivers coming to me and going, hey, I really want to learn ovals, how to run stock cars, how to run these cars. The best thing you can possibly do when you're in actually deep, you've got no front grip. So the problem is your tire, when you're turning it at a road course, you can only do one of 3 things with it. You can accelerate with the tire, you can turn with the tire, or you can brake with the tire. And it's all 3 of those. It's a percentage scale. The tire's only got so much grip available to it. So the problem is, if you're turning at 60% of the turning force of that tire, you've only got 40% available to your braking. If you're braking at 100%, you got no turning. So what Joseph Morales has actually done there is kept all of that force on braking. It's kept him out of the barriers.
Heads-up driving there by Morales keeps him in the game, at least for the moment, albeit 3 laps down. I was going to mention before he had that moment down there at Canada Corner, we've only got 5 drivers on the lead lap right now. Arturo Mayorga is the last driver on the lead lap. He's in no danger of going a lap down. He's more than a full minute ahead of Eric Schaus, but there's going to be some drivers coming out today that may not necessarily finish on the lead lap, but they're going to get decent results if they continue running where they are. You got Jim Herrick in 6th, Will Roberts in 7th, Charles Teed, who had the issue lap 1, turn 1, right out of the gate. Right now, 1 lap down, but in the 8th position. So it may not necessarily look pretty on the finishing results, but it's still going to not be that bad of a points payout.
Oh no, Joseph Morales is going back for another set of softs after all of that. He was struggling on the soft. He went back in. He went... From the 2 guys that we've seen on softs since I've been here, is Jim Herrick and Joseph Morales. Stay off the soft, is my advice.
So something I'm thinking here with our top 2, we were surprised to see that Taylor Jordan did not cycle back out to the race lead. Eric Schaus was actually able to jump him, and Schaus came to pit road 1 lap later than Taylor Jordan did. So Taylor Jordan, we know, is more than likely going to be getting off of hard tires. He's got to go to a different compound. Same deal for Eric Schaus. If you're Taylor Jordan, do you swap it up a little bit in terms of this next time you come to pit lane? Do you maybe come to pit road the same lap as Eric Schaus? Do you come to pit road 1 lap later? Because it seems like for the moment, the 1 lap earlier strat did not quite work out. Though, granted, I think he might be kind of riding a little bit here. He hasn't necessarily forced the issue for the race lead.
So the other thing I would say, so there's 2 things at play here. I think Taylor's actually fuel saving. I think he recognized that the undercut's actually worse. So he's done the right thing, right, by splitting the race into thirds. So he split it perfectly down the middle. All the tires are going to get the same amount of a workout. The problem I have with this strategy is I've just had a quick look at the lap times. The critical thing from Jordan is that his, not pit lane entry, but his pit lane exit lap was a 2:15. The difference there between himself and Eric Schaus was Schaus's exit lap was a 2:05. Now, the reason why we say an entry and an exit lap is that the pit lane entry marker is just before where the timing and scoring loop is for the end of the lap marker. So all of these guys' pit stalls are actually on the other side of the timing and scoring loop. So their pit stop's actually done in the second lap. I've just gone back and had a look at his lap 15. He had a spin. He actually had a spin. Was Taylor Jordan, and that's the difference. That's why he's lost that time. Pushing too hard on cold tires. And it was coming out of turn 6. So is that Corvette curve, I believe? Up and over the bridge, up under the bridge. Up to the peak of the hill.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yep. And that's actually been one of the biggest trouble spots for the drivers here today. That's where we saw Eric Schaus spin from the race lead back on lap 1.
Yeah, so the trouble spot. Jesus Christ, Schaus, stop weaving, giving me a heart attack. So what's actually happened there is that it's cold tires. So the difference between these two cars is actually the cold tires. The heat up lap, you can't wait 2 laps. You can only wait 1 lap after your opponent pits, because that 1 lap, remember we talked about when these two cars merged right beside each other, was that Schaus was getting caught by Taylor on that out lap, and indeed halfway into the next lap, he was still getting caught. So the problem is the heat up cycle. Now, this is where we just talked about the heating cycles and how you heat the tires and whether or not the tires can maintain the heat. Hard tire, which Taylor's been on this whole race, remember, doesn't rub across itself so much. It doesn't generate quite as much heat. It takes longer for that tire to get to its peak operating range than compared to the softer compounds. The problem here is that Taylor pushed on a little bit too hard and the tire wasn't quite there. The difference in the pace on that first lap is actually, I would say it's about second and a half. You just can't take it. By that second lap, it's most of the way there. You're about on par. By the end of the lap, the freshness of the tire covers off the coldness of the tire. At the start of the lap, you end up with an even time. So
car off track there. That was Morales again. That was over in Canada Corner again.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I just had some business text messages just come in. We actually got a long weekend here in Australia, so that's why I'm actually available to commentate with you, Seth. But yeah, so it's to do with the coldness of the tire compound. Doesn't have the grip available to it, which is why you want to go 1 lap longer. You get the life of the tire where you want it. He has to deal with a cold tire, and then he can come out and defend on a cold tire. Is the difference. So.
We're getting close to decision time though, because based off of when they made that first pit stop, 15, 16 laps in, means that right now we'd be about 2, maybe 3 laps away from when we'll see these drivers dive onto pit lane potentially for the final pit stop of the day. We got 9 survivors left in this thing. Sheridan Wade, about 5 laps ago, brought his car down pit road, made the right-hand turn to the garage. He'll get credited for the 10th position. We continue to watch this battle up here at the front. This is really the only battle that is going on. That's why we're staying up at the front. It's the closest battle that we've got. The next closest battle would actually be for the 6th position. Will Roberts and Jim Herrick both 1 lap down, but there is 4 seconds separation. So we're going to be keeping it up here at the front, especially on the eve of that trip to pit road. These drivers working hard here today. They're going to enjoy the off week next week for Father's Day. They'll be back at it in 2 weeks' time when we head back to another speedway. We had a very interesting season opener at Michigan. We go to its sister track as we go 2-mile speedway, super speedway type racing at Auto Club Speedway. That's going to be in 2 weeks' time on June the 25th.
Seth, you trying to get me back in the commentary booth? You've just said my favorite speedway words, Auto Club.
Auto Club. You liked Michigan too.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you like Auto Club, you automatically like Michigan.
Exactly.
Auto
yeah.
Club's
You can't like one and not the
track.
other.
Auto Club's my track with the highest success rate on iRacing, actually. So that's big winner of it. Do you know what Max Spence is, perchance?
Not off the top of my head, no.
It is literally a meme of a race that they do during week 13 of every iRacing season. Was actually on this weekend at the Auto Club road course.
Oh, wow.
So, when was the last time you heard those terms? Those words.
Often.
Auto Club road course.
Nope.
To celebrate Auto Club moving away from its 2-mile status and down to a shorter status, they're going to use a track layout that rarely gets attention. I said Auto Club was my winningest track. I added another one. to the first ever victory I've ever had on the first ever race I've had on the Auto Club road course. First
There
ever
you go.
victory on the Auto Club.
Congratulations.
Yeah, there you go. I didn't even know Auto Club had a road course.
I did know it had a road course, but it's not talked about very often. I mean, the sim that I run on Air 2003, they don't even, at least to my knowledge, they don't even have an Auto Club road course layout. I knew it existed, but just doesn't seem like it's talked about all that much.
It's a bunch of cones, and I believe it's actually used as a driver training tool. I know the Indy Lights go there. I'm pretty sure the Indy Lights use the course. I'm pretty sure Formula 3, Formula 4 in the United States actually use the course as well. I would have a fair idea that Formula V, Formula Ford would both use the course, and probably some lower tiered sports cars would use the course as well. It's basically just to keep the course operating, although no more.
Unfortunately. We got Jim Herrick. He was just on pit road. Swapped over from softs to mediums. But I think that's an indication that pretty soon we're going to have our race leaders on pit road. And Herrick probably didn't enjoy the slipping and sliding around there on softs. Yeah, we had the craziness here today with the only road course on the season. I want to get your thoughts on this because looked at the schedule when it was put out. Could not believe what I saw, but July 23rd, if there's a race you want to tune into, it's going to be July 23rd because we're going to be racing IR01 cars at Daytona Super Speedway. I mean, wow, these things don't even have bumpers. How is that going to work?
Can we get the snowplow front wings for the bumpers so we can actually go bumped up and racing?
Even broadcast colleague Matthew Rodriguez wants to give that one a try. He wants to see what that chaos is going to be like.
Here we go, race lead. There's a change to the race lead, Seth.
Yes, indeed. Taylor Jordan makes the move, has the inside advantage into Canada corner, and he will take the top spot. And I wonder if he chose that moment specifically because he knows the pit stops are coming up. He wants the track position on pit road entry. He's coming in. They're both coming in.
Yeah, they're both coming in. Okay.
I think that was calculated. He wanted to be that lead car.
So the problem I've got here is, yes, I agree with that. He waited. He ran a very, very long run on those tires in dirty air. So two problems. Remember we talked about dirty air and its effect on the downforce levels. What that actually does as well is it makes the tires skip across the surface. If you're adding the same level of input as you would normally add into the steering wheel and you haven't got the grip, the tire skips across the surface. Guess what that does, Seth? Friction. You want to... Oh no! Did Taylor miss his stall? Taylor missed his stall!
He overshot it, and this was something that actually happened to him last week at Pocono where he overshot his stall. He lost a ton of track position after dominating most of that race, restarted back, I think it was in the 5th position, but yeah, he was able to mount a comeback because it was a caution at that point back at Pocono. Not going to be able to mount a comeback here unless he lays down some lightning fast lap times. Schaus went from mediums to hards, Taylor Jordan goes from hards to mediums.
And we've got to keep half an eye on. So remember, Taylor Jordan's last cold tire lap had a spin. That's why he lost the race lead. This is critical here. Now remember this time, this is Eric Schaus going from medium to hard. He's got a 4-second advantage, but I can guarantee you on these next 2 laps, Eric Schaus will be taking care. He's got cold tires. He might be aware that something happened. Oh, there's the drama, there's the moment! Saved it. Wow. He's lost 7/10 of a second already, Seth. He's already dropped 7/10 of a second. I think Taylor Jordan's in red mist mode. The red mist has been deployed.
We're going to have to keep an eye on the lap times here. 15 laps to go. Plenty of time for Taylor Jordan to be able to reel him in. It's about 3 seconds. Well, it was 3.5, now closing to 3 seconds. Taylor Jordan up to Eric Schaus. And you talked about cold tires. That was the same corner, turn 6, that Eric Schaus had problems with on cold tires at the initial start of this race.
So the problem here is if Jordan had come out of the pits directly behind Schaus instead of this far back, the move would be done, he'd have the lead. The tires would fade in the back end of the stint. He'd probably be able to defend, though, from the race lead. The problem is now he's got to take everything out of these tires. These tires are gonna wear, and he's come off 2 hard stints where he hasn't had to conserve tires. Now he's got all that grip. Now he's got to push on. Now he's in a hole.
Issue for Craig Forsyth here. Let's drop back in. Oh, gosh! It was
That's
Joseph Morales coming back across the track and nowhere for Forsyth to be able to go.
I think that's race done for Forsyth. Yeah, that'll be race done for Forsyth as well. Nothing he could have done there.
a little bit surprising that with what we had there, oncoming traffic, the multi-car incident, that didn't necessarily bring out a full course yellow.
Well, the problem is, if a multi-car incident brought out a full course yellow, we would have had 10 racing laps thus far, Seth.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
So,
2.5 seconds right now, the gap. Schaus over
coming.
Taylor Jordan. Also, a little interesting point of note, he's not right at the moment in the conversation for the win, but Najee Camargo, he went from mediums to softs for this final stint. Third place driver.
He's been the only one to not run that hard tire. Just about everyone else has gone to that hard tire. Some point in time is, I believe Arturo is back onto the mediums after his stint on the hard. So that stint on the hard's really, really cost Arturo, unfortunately. But with him now on the hards, that'll be an interesting one to keep watch on, because I really think that Yaya probably didn't need to go to the soft. I would have preferred to have seen him on the hard. Risky strategy. With where they are on the track and the differential between them, him going to the soft is just a huge risk. What's his gain? He's 20 seconds back off our lead too. There's no gain there. You're never going to make 20 seconds back. You would have to run qualifying laps the entire time. You can't do that on the soft tire. You can do it maybe on the medium. You can definitely do it on the hard. So the problem is he's not going to gain anything. By him going to the soft here, if something happens and he has to slow down, he hasn't got a tire to defend with, is my big concern for him.
Last time by, 0.9 of a second advantage to Taylor Jordan. He can see Eric Schaus up ahead. How much of a help, how much of a distraction is that for the second place driver?
I think it's a big help. A bunch of us were actually sitting around and talking about endurance racing yesterday, just from the Discord circles I was talking about. We're talking about the ability to maintain focus over a long run. Obviously, sprint race, not necessarily an endurance, but it's an endurance of sorts. We've already been running for 50 minutes, so remember, these drivers are still wearing heavy load going through the wheels, heavy load for these drivers trying to keep the cars on the track and run them. It makes it easier. I prefer to be the chasing driver in circumstances like these. At the end of the day, if I don't get the move done, there's nothing much I really can do. But I can chase. I've got a target to drive through. It keeps you laser focused. The problem for Eric Schaus is it's so difficult to be a lead car on an A-lane tire and trying to hit your marks every single lap. He's in the worst phase of the tire right now. It's this next 5 laps where he is going to be mega vulnerable. After that, they equalize. And then we're going to have 5 laps at the end where Schaus has got better tires.
I don't know if it's the tires or if it was the driver, but from Canada corner over here to the final turn, a lot of ground was made up by Taylor Jordan. I think he gained about 2 or 3 tenths of a second just in that section alone. Last time by, 2 tenths of a second faster was Taylor Jordan. Not nearly the advantage he got on the previous lap, so Eric Schaus might have been able to find a little something to combat the medium tires that Taylor Jordan is currently on, but the problem is 12 laps to go, still a long ways left in this one. Plenty of time for Taylor Jordan to be able to work with.
So a couple facts of the race as well for you as well at this point in time, Seth. Cloud cover, we had it in that last stint. It's gone again.
Yes.
Track temperature has now crept back up a little bit. We're at 4:40 p.m. in Sim local time, so we are trending towards a cooler track as this race has gone on. That actually really leads itself. Remember, we're talking about the hard tire favors now the medium tire as this track cools off, because the medium tire will hang on a lot longer. In the last stint, though, for Taylor Jordan, with that track temperature cooling, I think it got down to about 28 Celsius, 27, 28 Celsius, so a degradation of about 7-8 degrees Fahrenheit. He ran a 34.250. His most recent lap, 34.268. If we actually have a look at Eric Schaus's best laps, Schaus hasn't run as quick a lap time, but his best lap has come on the exact same lap as Taylor Jordan. Car in the fence. He just went by. I think it was Jim Herrick. It was Jim Herrick.
Yep.
Yeah.
Off
He's
of
now done as well.
Final corner.
That is a destroyed left front.
And it is indeed the tire completely gone, left front wing mangled. Eric's more than likely going to end up finishing in 7th because of that. Craig Forsyth, Joseph Morales, we saw the contact those two had off the final corner and heading up the hill to the start finish line. They're out of the race. Forsyth going to get credit for 8th. Morales credited for 9th. Oh, as of right now, it looks like there's only going to be 6 drivers left in this field. As we're closing in on 10 laps to go next time by. Let's actually go through the field here of those that are still left. You got Eric Schaus, started on the pole position, lost the race lead on the first lap, drifted all the way back to 9th. Some drivers ahead of him also ran into issues. He was able to get back to as high as 5th place, utilized pit strategy to be able to get back out in front. There you see the lowest he's been today, 7th place. He has led the most laps so far in this one, but it has definitely been a Schaus versus Taylor Jordan battle really ever since the drop of the green flag. Taylor Jordan right now, last time by, 1.8 seconds between him and Eric Schaus. Schaus looking for his first win on the season. Taylor Jordan looking for his second.
A couple things to note as well. We're talking about that soft tire of Niege. He's now running slower lap times than Arturo behind him. So Arturo on that medium is actually coming at him at a rate of knots. About a second a lap he took out of him on that last lap. So I think, again, that soft tire has overheated. I don't think that's actually due to tire wear. I think that's actually overheating. Overheating will then lead to tire wear, but that's a separate issue. Lap times. Remember we were talking about when those guys ran their fastest lap? Both Eric Schaus and Taylor Jordan ran it on lap 20. I'm going to hazard a guess that's when the course was the coldest. They were 0.05 of a second in their lap time over a minute 34 laps. So nearly identical, different compounds. And surprisingly, Jordan ran the quicker of the 2 lap times, even though he was on the hard compound compared to the medium. This stint, on the hard compound, Schaus has actually been quite close. 34.483 is his best time on, 470, most recent lap, is actually his best lap time on this stint. For Taylor Jordan, 34.268 on lap 33 has started falling off to the realm of about 1.5 tenths a lap. We're seeing him 1.5 to 2 tenths a lap is what his tire fall off is. So that could be driver slowly just losing concentration, losing focus, or worn out driver. It could be that rubber. I'm leaning towards that.
A couple of drivers that have done a good job after early issues. They're still soldiering on. Will Roberts right now in the 5th position, our winner from New Hampshire. Came into this race 5th in the point standings. Drivers ahead of him have struggled today. Forsyth out of the race, Jeff Hysong out of the race. So he may end up, I think he was only 9 points behind, correction, he was only 3 points behind Forsyth and only 6 points behind Jeff Hysong. So he could be up maybe even as high as 3rd in overall points when we get to Auto Club in a couple of weeks. And Charles Teed, you saw there as well, running in 6th. He is 6th in points, and he's also within striking distance of both Forsyth and Jeff Hysong. He could be up inside of the top 5, maybe top 4 in overall points heading into the next race as well. It's going to be interesting to see. I haven't actually done any digging to see about drop races, if those are a thing here this season for the F.A.R.T NDCar series, but if they are not, Eric Schaus was only 35 points behind J.W. Miller coming into this race. Granted, J.W. Miller with 2 victories, but not in the field here tonight. So, big opportunity. Eric Schaus, whether he wins this race or finishes second to Taylor Jordan, could very well accumulate enough points where he would be the new points leader.
If there was a drop round on this season, I think the bulk of the field is going to take this as their drop round.
I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. Either this or Daytona. If there's 2 drop weeks, it's this one and Daytona.
I've actually seen heat racing at Daytona in open wheel cars with high horsepower, as I'm going to refer to them from now on. That gets around all the issues, doesn't it? Open wheel cars with high horsepower.
We've seen some fantastic wrecks with these IR01 cars, and that's just been at tracks like New Hampshire and Phoenix and Michigan. Oh my gosh, I can't imagine the blowovers that might take place when we get to the high banks of Daytona. I mean, two words you just don't hear in a sentence together. Open wheel cars and Daytona International Speedway.
Unless it's the road blowovers. Well, yeah, that's true. I've been lurking around the formula for a while, and since the issues, I'm not a fan. I see, if you have a look at the drivers who are driving these cars now, who are in this series, they're diehards. Your Craig Forsyth, your Eric Schaus, they need an open wheel oval series. They've got to have something. That's what they love. That's what they've done for the last forever. They've done it for forever. They're going to keep doing it forever. They're stuck in their ways. If Matt Wagner was involved, I'd call it old man syndrome, because that man is an old man. Shout out to Matt Wagner.
I'm leaving that one alone. I'm leaving that. I'll just be a spectator in the stands with that fight.
dropped by and called me a nerd actually yesterday on the stream. So that guy and I are still getting one. But the tire compound, it just, for me, the car isn't settled. I don't know if it's the tread depth on the tire, because I'm pretty sure they're a low profile tire, somewhat similar to NASCAR. What I've learned based upon that is that the low profile tires are not good for oval racing. You need a thicker, spongier tire that acts as a suspension, because it just keeps the car in better contact with the road, creates better racing. I think the big thing that's letting these cars down is lack of driver tools to run in the dirty air. And the previous generation of cars before this, they really had that. You weren't a passenger in the car. You weren't stuck in the position that you're in. You didn't have to go searching. So, I mean, it's not my formula. It's not something I'm thoroughly enjoying, and it's something I'm happy to sit down and take a back seat and enjoy watching, because I think the racing is, by and large, still watchable, but not enjoyable.
Not sure what exactly is going on right at the moment with Taylor Jordan. We were watching him pretty rapidly closing up the gap between himself and Eric Schaus. It has seemed to kind of stagnate out at 1.8, 1.9 seconds. He's not been able to close it up to about 1.5. It's been, I think the closest he got was 1.6, and that was 2 laps ago, and he's fallen off a little bit here. So I'm not exactly certain what the factor is that is allowing that. I don't know if if he's found something in which to be able to defend, or if Taylor Jordan might be pushing it a little too hard and making some mistakes. Consistently, the last 3 or 4 laps, Jordan has been faster, but that last time by, 287 to a 407 advantage, Eric Schaus. You talked about that 5-lap eclipse that Schaus had to get through. Has he passed through that window? And now, yeah, so now he's being able to work with maybe the tires at the optimal temp they need to be.
So I think the issue here from Taylor Jordan, we'll get the opportunity to talk to him about it, is that the problem is if you take too much out of the life of the tire. If you can let that red mist descend, you're not as in control of exactly what you're doing. You're driving a lot more on instinct. The problem with driving on instinct is you tend to scrub the tire. You'll tend to take too much out of the tire. You'll take some liberties with braking zone. You'll take some liberties with getting back to the throttle, all in the name of raw speed, raw pace, raw talent. The problem with that approach is that when you're on 2 different tire compounds, as we're in this phase of the race, think of it as Eric Schaus's best lap time on those tires. If he absolutely nails it, might be a 34 flat on the hard tire. If he's on the perfect lap time on a medium tire, it might be a 33.6, 0.4 of a second different. Then we add in, for each lap on the track, you're taking away 0.5 tenth out of that hard tire, and you're taking away a full tenth out of that medium tire. You can see that after a few laps, that's going to cross over. It takes about 8 laps for that to kick in. We're now 10 laps into this stint, so the tires have definitely gone the way of Schaus.
Eric Schaus here, he's got to be a grueling final 5.5 laps. I don't think he's necessarily wanting to look at his relative, does not want to know just how close Taylor Jordan is. But we've already seen him get off track earlier on today. We've seen him almost get off track another half dozen times. Just how much does it get into your head about making sure you execute going through these corners? Do not make a mistake, because you know that if you make a mistake, Jordan is still within striking distance to be able to take advantage.
There's major differences in my mind to this final stint as compared to the ones before. And the major difference is before he had to adjust his driving style around an ailing medium tire. This time around, it's not so much. He could actually just hit the same markers lap after lap after lap after lap, because the hard tire is going to allow for that to happen. In the last couple of stints, you saw those moments, but he was also a lot closer. The biggest thing I'd say, there's a couple different styles of driver. I'm the style where I like to know the numbers. You give me the hard data, you give me the hard facts. I want to see those numbers constantly. And I will run with a lot of numbers around on my screen. I can see gaps, I can see sector splits, I can see differences in lap time. And whenever I'm on a straight, I'll just reset myself, go, what do I need to achieve out of this car? What is my goal lap time? What am I trying to achieve? But for Eric, in this sort of a position, this is actually where you don't want that approach. You actually want to settle into it. Use your mirror. Let that tell you how far behind the car is. Let that be your driver tool that sets where your lap pace needs to be. Because right now, all he's going to do, braking zone, turn in point, exit. Braking zone, turn in point, exit. He does that 5 more times, he's going to be a winner.
consistently the last 2 laps, he has been about 2/10 quicker than Taylor Jordan. The advantage has now grown to 2.1 seconds. Taylor Jordan quickly starting now to run out of time to be able to close up that advantage to at least have a shot of getting up to Eric Schaus to be able to make a move. Jim Herrick is the most recent driver out of the race. He'll get credited for 7th, but it will be his first top 10 finish on the season. We've got 6 drivers still running, 4 of them on the lead lap. I thought I saw for a moment, and maybe I'm wrong, I thought when I saw Eric Schaus heading down the hill towards turn number 8, I thought I saw maybe a car up ahead. I don't know if traffic's going to come into play here or not.
No, there's no car up ahead. Yeah, there's about half a track. So they've just come off turn 3. The next car is going through the carousel right now, which is Arturo in P4. So that's that one. The one I'm actually keeping up. Whoa! I think this one's sorted. I don't think much is going to happen. It's going to take a huge mistake to sort it. The problem I've got, I just watched the AJ Camargo go through the carousel, and I'm watching him go through the last corner. He just before we clicked over to that shot, he tagged the grass on the left-hand side running into that corner. Big wiggle on the way in. Was, I think, 25 seconds ahead of the car behind. That's halved. And he's struggling. Yeah. This is the part where the soft tire is in dire straits. He is struggling to pull this car up. He's struggling to touch the gas pedal. He's struggling to turn the thing in. You can see it in everything he's doing. Watch the car. Watch that wiggle through the middle of the corner. That is a soft tire that's in trouble. The gap might be 13 seconds. If there was another 3 laps, I would say Arturo is going to catch him.
Trying to hang on to that podium finish, looking for what would be his second top 5, but by far his best finish of his career. Talking about Najee Camargo. To your point, the gap is continuing to close. When we drop back and we're looking at him, it had cut down from 25 seconds to 13 seconds. It is now down to 11 seconds between himself and Mayorga. Might have a battle for that final podium position if it continues to trend in the direction it's going right now. Also, a little bit of traffic that Camargo's going to have to deal with. That is the lap car of Charles Teed on the same straight as him, heading down here into Kettle Bottoms.
I can tell you Taylor Jordan as well just did a 35.2, so he's fallen off a second in terms of his lap time, so he's done. That margin is opening up 0.8 of a second, I think. Schaus actually threw on him, and Camargo's round the corner. Yeah,
yes,
so
he is.
6 seconds. He's gonna get caught.
He is.
Remember how I said the soft tire was
the corner now.
Remember how I said the soft tire was a liability? There goes P3.
Just like that, up to the podium goes Mayorga, and kind of like you said right there, kind of the white flag being displayed, a surrender by Taylor Jordan. Same there for Najee Camargo, because it's very unlikely now that soft tire compound and having lit them up with that spin that he's going to have any type of speed, any type of grip to be able to reel Mayorga back in for 3rd place.
Well, he's had to pit in. He's had to pit. The problem is, remember what I said. You know, you've got to get rid of that heat out of that tire before the grip comes back into the tire. The soft tire, remember, frictionless, a high level of friction within the tire. Let alone the speed that you're trying to extract out of it's above what the tire is capable of. So there's all these circumstances you keep piling and piling and piling and piling on. If he wants to strap a soft tire on right now, he absolutely can.
2 laps to go here for Eric Schaus. Season did not start out the way that, season started out the way that he was hoping. Ended up having back-to-back second-place finishes, but then the last 2 races at Phoenix and Pocono, 15th and 14th place. Still managed to be second in the points coming into this one, and if he ends up closing out the deal here with this victory, like I said, I think mathematically he is going to have points lead heading into Auto Club in a couple of weeks' time. Eric Schaus, I'm trying to remember back when we covered the Dark Horse Racing Series several seasons. Don't recall him necessarily being a driver that we talked about on the regular as one of the guys to watch at a road course.
So Eric Schaus is definitely a road course driver. He does drive a lot of endurance races. He does put the time in. Of the drivers that we had around at that stage, he was actually probably one of the top 3 or 4 road course drivers in the series at that point in time. It's a different formula, completely different car, completely different style of driving. And I know that Eric's been putting the effort in. Matt Wagner's actually been reaching out to me recently for some coaching, so I've been hoping to spend some more time with Wagner when that time opens up and improve his road course abilities.
Even if he calls you a nerd.
I mean, that's part of the fun. That's part of the payment. Look, you laugh along with Wagner. You don't take it to heart. You laugh along. And besides, I am a nerd. Have you heard the tire facts of spat out today, Seth? I love tires.
That is true. That is true.
I'm the Yuki Tsunoda of
You're the Australian Larry
racing.
McReynolds.
White
flags in the air. You got to give us our trends of the race.
Yes, the trend is that the soft tire, not a great tire, falls off incredibly quickly. The medium tire, pretty good until lap 10. After that, forget it. It's the tire you don't want to be on. That hard tire, that thing's gonna be perfect for cooking some ribeye on at the end of the race.
Interesting how we ended up having the varying strategies amongst our top two. First stint, mediums for Schaus, hards for Jordan. They kept the same tire compound for the second stint and then swapped it. Mediums for Jordan and hards for Eric Schaus, and obviously we're seeing which combination was the correct one. Eric Schaus, just a couple of more corners here before he heads into Kettle Bottoms, has to deal with Canada Corner, and then will turn for home for his first win on the season. Interesting point, in fact. You talk about the soft tires. Well, Najee Camargo, when he came down pit road, he took on the soft tires again for the final couple of runs to the finish there. Probably just trying to keep himself ahead of Will Roberts to get fourth place here today.
Look, I mean, he could have taken on either tire, but yeah, the softs come up a lot quicker. I'm just listening to Taylor Jordan. He may have actually underfueled this car as well. So instead of pushing on, he's actually really, really low on the rev range on that car. I'd say that's actually safety from him to make sure he doesn't spin. There's no reason to put risk in it. He knew his tires were gone. Knew he wasn't competing. Of the two drivers, as we celebrate Eric Schaus.
Except that victory does Eric Schaus. Let's see if Taylor Jordan had the fuel to make it up the hill. Yeah, I think he's going to make it.
I don't necessarily think that's fuel. I actually think that's him just going, I don't want to spin. I'm no longer going to be able to get first place, so we're going to lock in second. And it's a hard lock on second.
And Arturo Mayorga is our third place driver, and he's just now heading into the carousel.
I was going to say, he's the only driver left on the lead lap, so no matter what happens from here, he can put the car on the fence, he will still get third place. Surprisingly, Seth, I actually think that Taylor Jordan was actually on the better strategy of the two. And I think the late race, the ability for Taylor to go down the inside of Schaus into Canada Corner at the end of that second stint actually spoke to the volumes of improvement that Taylor Jordan's strategy had over the medium tires. I think the execution of Schaus was better. That's been the key feature. We saw on both stints from... Actually, it was both on that second stint. We saw the spin on the outlap from Taylor Jordan, and then we saw missing the pit stall. That was the key bits and pieces of the race. He doesn't spin coming off a pit road. He doesn't have to deal with dirty air on that second stint. He runs away from Schaus. He may have had a buffer to actually defend upon, but because he got... If he come out level, and he was level and got by Schaus on that opening lap, he set sail. I think he may still win this one. I don't think the issue is with pulling into that pit stall. So I think the key factor of that race was actually the spin.
We'll be talking to, actually, we might not be able to talk to Taylor Jordan about it. The last couple of weeks, I don't think he has a microphone. He's finishing the podium. We haven't been able to talk with him. But I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think that if that spin doesn't happen, he's more than likely the car out in front playing defense. It may have been close. Might have been close between those two, but I think that it would have been an advantage to Taylor Jordan because Eric Schaus made up a ton of ground on that first cycle of pit stops.
It was 10 seconds with the difference in that lap time. You can't give away 10 seconds. And that's the difference that 10 seconds makes. If you talk about that second stint of the race, he had to push on it, right? He had to try and get by. He knew that the tires weren't quite there on the opening couple laps, so he had to sit there. The problem with sitting there in the dirty air is as the tires came on, the increased wear took it away from him. If he could have got by with 5 laps to go on that stint, he may still have had a chance, even with that moment in pit lane. But the problem is sitting behind that whole stint. If he'd have come out ahead of Schaus and just been able to hold Schaus off, and Schaus sat there, it was reversed. I reckon late on in that second stint, he actually would have pulled away to probably a 3 to 4 second lead, but it would have been over the last 5 laps of that stint, 5 to 7 laps of that stint, where he actually would have started gapping Schaus. But provided he comes out ahead of Schaus, he would have had the advantage. He had to get by on that race, on that lap where Schaus came out of the pits. It was on cold tires. That was the key fact. Fine, mistakes in the book, but you gotta earn it. And I think if he got aggressive and got that job done, he would have won this race. But P2, you don't complain about P2s in a series like this.
And of course, as well, for both Eric Schaus and Taylor Jordan finishing where they do in first and second, both with very similar statistics heading into next week. 3 finishes on the podium, a win, and 2 second-place finishes. And how about Arturo Mayorga? He was kind of the question mark coming into this one. We didn't know about him from previous races. He'd never made a start in the Dark Horse Racing Series, at least here on FRN. And a very good run. Podium finish here today. Obviously, the mistake by Nigel Camargo in Canada Corner helped him to be able to get that third place finish, but he was really a top 5 car all day long, so good debut for him.
Yeah, you take those. I mean, you'll bank it, you'll put it away, you'll enjoy it. Where the bloody heck was Wagner in that one? Where was my favorite nerd? Because I'm disappointed in that man. Either way, Auto Club next race.
No Wagner, no J.W. Miller. We had a lot of drivers up there in points that weren't here tonight. No Elmer Joseph, no Eric Peterson. These are drivers that were up inside the top 10 in the standings.
Maybe they saw the big old jump Scott McLaughlin had in the real world racing on the curves.
Maybe.
Did you see that yet? That was a hit.
Did. A couple of drivers are going to take some big hits in the points with the finishes here tonight. Most notably, Jeff Heisong came into this race 3rd in points. I think based off what I'm looking at, he could drop down maybe outside of the top 7 or 8 in overall standings. And Chris Stouffer, tough break there for Chris because he had a great run last time out at Pocono, gained 10 spots in the standings and may have just given all those points back with an 12th place finish here this evening. But like I said earlier, the agony and the ecstasy had to go through the grueling lefts and rights, the elevation changes here of Road America with this road course race, but it's the only time you got to do it. No other road courses on the schedule, so now they can focus on speedway racing and, of course, Daytona. That's still kind of the outlier there that we'll be having to keep an eye on. But we just talked about good run there in the debut for Arturo Mayorga. Let's see if we can dial him up, get an impression of what the drivers thought about this race here tonight in Wisconsin. Hey Arturo, is Scott and Seth up here in the FRN booth? You got us?
Yeah, I got you loud and clear. How are you guys doing?
We're doing good. We're fine up here. I bet you're worn out though, because we saw what drivers were dealing with, the slipping, the sliding out there, having to choose between what tire compounds to be able to utilize during the course of those stints. What was the outlying factor here today that you had to deal with the most?
Well, I knew going in that tire management was going to be a big deal. It was in practice, it was very easy to just burn the tires down very quickly and have problems. And sure enough, I had some issues at the beginning of the stint with the heavy load and some issues at the end, but it looks like I wasn't the only one, and it came down to managing those problems.
In terms of race pace, the strategy was one that we sort of followed quite a long way. Did you feel more comfortable on that medium tire, knowing that you were going to fade in that second half of the stint, and knowing that it'd actually be quite treacherous, or was the hard tire actually a better tire? And you by the end of the third stint, you actually had the option to have a look back at the race and go, which tire do I actually want for this last stint? And did that influence the choice?
Yeah, that was definitely a thing that I knew going in, that the hard tire was a little bit more consistent in terms of lap time, so it was easier to manage. But I did, in my calculations, know that it was a little bit quicker with the mediums, but I knew it was going to be more difficult. So it was just a matter of taking that risk and see if a podium could happen. And sure enough, here we are.
We normally, when we come to Road America, we single out areas of the racetrack that we think are going to be the key trouble spots. Turn 5 down the Moraine Sweep, that heavy braking zone left-hander usually is a place that we focus on. Of course, Canada Corner, turn 12 always seems to be an issue for people, but it kind of seemed like there were other places of the racetrack, too, that drivers were struggling with. Did you have any particular area of the racetrack that you focused on for execution, making sure that you hit your marks there?
Yeah, I think right before the carousel was a big area of care, just to make sure that I wasn't overheating the tires and I had something to leave behind for the carousel itself and try to get some speed. So yeah, and sure enough, that was a problem, a part where I had a little bit of a trouble on my second stint, and but overall, I think it wasn't too bad.
Staying out of trouble definitely was something drivers had to do today to be able to get good finishes. Top 4 finishers did not have to utilize the faster pair because they were able to execute and not deal with the Armco barriers, the tire barriers here today. Arturo being one of them. Congratulations on the great run. Great debut for you here in the F.A.R.T NDCar series. Before we let you go, though, we're going to turn the microphone over to you and let you do some shout-outs and some thank yous, Arturo.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, everybody in the team, the Masco Racing team, Blue Frog Racing, and shout out to everybody who's been so welcoming to the league. And yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thank you very much.
Arturo Mayorga, 3rd place in his debut here at Road America. Once again, congratulations. Hopefully we see you here for the remainder of the season.
Looking forward to it.
And it looks like, looks like with not having a microphone, we're not going to be able to get insight from 2nd place finisher Taylor Jordan. So let's go down to victory lane and see if we can talk with our winner. That's Eric Schaus. Hey, Eric, it's Scott and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Hey, gentlemen.
Well, the last couple of races have not been kind to you. Finishes outside of the top 10, but here today, dominant car, got the pole position, lost the race lead there on lap 1, but continually clawed your way back up to the front, and once you got the race lead, never looked back. A lot of drivers seem to really struggle with this racetrack. I mean, obviously, we saw that you were able to pick up positions after making the initial mistake, but how difficult was it to mount that comeback?
Yeah, I mean, it was a challenge. This track is easy to learn and very hard to master. And with these cars, first couple guys I got around, not a big deal. But once I caught up to some of the quicker guys like Arturo, it took me several laps to get around him with all the dirty air. I could get close to him, and then I'd push through a couple corners, and I'd have to back off and make another run at it. So it actually made it really challenging. And I just got lucky that Taylor ended up spinning in the same spot that I spun and kind of negated both of our spins, and we both ended up kind of back at 0. And from there, it was just a race.
In terms of that middle segment of the race, we actually talked about how crucial the overcut was, because bringing those tires actually up to temperature, it looked like a skating rink, to be perfectly honest, out there on that track. And that second run, I mean, you went from medium to medium, so at least that tire came up a little bit quicker. And I'm just gonna say tough race, man. That looked like a nightmare. That looked like a stressful race. What's the load like on you? How are you feeling?
Yeah, I am pretty drained, pretty dead after that one. I definitely did myself no favors with that spin on lap 1. I think otherwise it probably would have been a much easier race. Taylor went off in the first lap or first corner, so that gave me a couple, a little breathing room, but I gave it all back and more immediately. That first lap on any of those sets of tires it is an ice skating rink. After lap 2 or 3, they come in pretty well. Hards are a couple more laps after that, but yeah, you really had to be gentle on them, and then once you got things up to speed, you could start pushing on them. But then it was a matter of just not getting any little lockups here or there to keep the tire life. Otherwise, you'd be dead before the end of the run.
We talked about with these IR01 cars, Scott touched on this, of how you have to be really careful on the throttle. We had onboards tonight and saw so much counter steering off a lot of these corners, especially the uphill left-hand corners. This is the only road course that we're going to be running this season. Are you happy about that, or based off the grueling experience that we had here tonight, are you kind of a little bit relieved that this is the only time we're going to be running a road course configuration this season?
As hard as this is, I do like it. I enjoy the grind. It's pretty rewarding to put in the effort and then have a really good battle like we did out there, and have a real question mark on who was going to take the win. So a little disappointed we don't have more road courses. I feel like this is my biggest strength compared to the rest of the drivers, but so be it. I guess I'll just have to beat them on the ovals.
Talk about strength. Started out the season at Michigan with a runner-up finish. We go to the sister track in a couple of weeks' time at Auto Club. Obviously, going to be cutting into that points lead. Might be the points leader heading to Auto Club. We'll have to wait until the points are calculated. But what's the confidence level now with this kind of momentum heading into a track that you've already run a similar configuration and gotten a good finish at?
Yeah, I feel good on any of the larger ovals. Short tracks are my weakness, so as long as we avoid those, I'm happy. I felt like at Pocono, I had a pretty good car up until the end, where I took some nose damage, which really screwed me over on the last couple laps. So I think overall on those big ovals, I'm pretty strong.
Well, talked about the fact that it was an exhausting race. I think the key element that pointed out just what a grueling race you drivers went through. Saw you cross the line, didn't even see any strength to do burnouts here tonight, but get the victory nonetheless. Get that checkered flag, first of the season. Congratulations. Before we let you go and either continue celebrating or maybe get some rest, one or the other, the floor is yours for Victory Lane. Thank you, sponsors and shoutouts.
All right, yeah, thanks guys over at FRN here. I appreciate the broadcasts. Look forward to watching this one. Thanks to Dark Horse for putting on the league and all the admins, and then thanks for any viewers out there.
Eric Schaus, he picks up the victory here tonight at Road America, his first of the season. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And that is going to conclude our coverage here tonight. Unpredictable race for these drivers, unpredictable race for me, but in a good way, because started out this thing all by myself, and great to have you back up here in the booth with me tonight, Scott. It was a pleasure to be able to bounce things off of you once again, just like old times.
I was going to say, man, you broadcasting a road race solo, that's not good for anyone. I had to come in here and save the show. I don't know what you're on about.
Oh, you had the stats. You saved me with the stats.
Oh, you love stats. I've actually been talking to
I absolutely love stats. You know this.
Every single time I bring up how you can really get the most out of stats and previous winners and understanding the culture of a race, it's always Seth Cole. I bring up Seth Cole. You are like my go-to example of how to understand a league and how to leverage stats to your benefit. This man, ladies and gentlemen, he is a cultural icon of simulated broadcasting. Man is a beast.
That is a nice way of saying I'm a stats sponge.
A nerd, in other words.
That's the nerd. That's the word. That's the word of the night. That is the word of the night. Well, I appreciate you joining me up in the booth here tonight. A good one here this evening. Obviously, it was really interesting to kind of watch how these drivers had to deal with this type of car at this type of track configuration. Successful for some, others maybe with a little bit of headaches, but a bit of maybe an experiment to see if they end up putting some more road courses on the upcoming new schedule for the next season. We'll have to wait and see, but nonetheless, an unpredictable race. Nice to be able to kind of watch that strategy at the end, and again, a pleasure to have you up in the booth for this one.
Yeah, pleasure being here. I mean, great race, and we saw the difference between experienced veterans, guys that haves, and the have-nots as well. It's a great opportunity to let everyone really showcase their skills, and I think we saw a great race as a result.
Absolutely. Congratulations once again to Eric Schaus on the win here tonight at Road America in the F.A.R.T NDCar Series under the Dark Horse Racing Series banner presented by Troy Lee Designs. Hope you guys enjoyed. Remember, we are off next week for Dark Horse. We'll be back the following week, 2 weeks' time, when we head to Auto Club Speedway to continue on the season, en route to finding out who's going to be the inaugural champion of the series. But until then, for Scott Rankin, I'm Seth Cole. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday night, folks. You've been watching another broadcast courtesy of FRN, the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope